Think the Switch 2 is expensive? Well, I do too. But we're both wrong, because when you factor in inflation and how much people were actually earning back in the day, some consoles launched at prices so insane it looks like the Switch 2 is at a bargain sale. Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 most expensive console launches in gaming history, and I rank them by how much of your actual annual income they consumed had you bought them at launch. And stick around, because I feel it too. After the list, I'll show you why the Switch 2 still feels expensive, even though the math says it isn't, and it didn't even place on the list. Here's how I came up with the list. I took the US launch prices of every major home console and adjusted them for inflation using the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. Then I pulled an average of the US household income for each launch year, so we could see what percentage of your yearly income each console actually cost. Finally, I ran the numbers to figure out what percentage that would look like today, and spoiler alert, it gets ugly real fast. Starting off, we got the original Xbox. It launched at $299 in 2001, which adjusts to about $540 today. Now, the average income that year was $32,921. So this cost just about 0.91% of your household income, not even 1%. To match that percentage today, the Switch 2 would need to only cost $528, and it's launching at $450. The original Xbox was the first console to have an internal hard drive built in and Ethernet, setting the stage for modern online gaming, but also it was kind of innovative at the time, so it might make more sense. Next is the Xbox 360 Premium version. This one had a 20GB hard drive and the wireless controller. It's the one that everyone bought. It launched at $399, which was about $645 today. Now, back in 2005, household income was $36,953, so this was about 1.08% of your yearly income. Again, to match that percentage today, the Switch 2 would need to cost about $626. Fun fact, the Xbox 360 cost Microsoft over $1 billion in warranty extensions because of the red ring of death. Remember that guy? I remember wrapping my towel around that thing, trying to heat it up, overheat it, because it was supposed to. Anyone else try that? Then we got the Xbox One. It's $499 at launch, which was around $655 today. In 2013, income was around $44,000, $888, so it took up about 1.11% of your yearly average income. To match that today, the Switch would need to cost about $644. And I remember the console was announced. Maybe it was just me, but it kind of felt like it was a TV box first and then a game console second, which might explain why it got smoked by the PS4 at launch. Also, looking forward into where Xbox is right now and how they kind of think of consoles, it explains a lot. The PlayStation 3 launched at $599 for the 60GB model, and that's $935 in today's money. In 2006, average income was $38,651, so that's about 1.55% of your yearly income. Matching that now, the Switch would need to cost about $899. And Sony once justified the PS3's price by saying it was a cheap Blu-ray player, but you still had to pay $599 to play MotorStorm. Next up is the Sega Saturn. Now, the Sega Saturn dropped in 1995 for $399, which is about $835 today. The average income at that time was $24,705, which means the console took up about 1.61% of average household income. That would be like paying $933 for a Switch right now. And the Saturn had 2 CPUs, which made it a nightmare to develop for. Sega even surprise launched it in the US without telling retailers. Atari launched the 5200 at $269, or about $888 today. With income about $14,531, that's about 1.85% of your yearly income. To match that today, the Switch would need to cost about $1,073, and the 5200 controller was so poorly designed, it is considered one of the worst gaming controllers in history. Then there's the Atari 2600, launching at $199, which is about $1,035 today. Income back then was $9,779, so this little console took up 2.03% of what people actually made in a year, which would translate to about $1,177 today. And the Atari 2600 basically invented home gaming. It introduced the world to joysticks and cartridges, again, being a true innovator in the space, especially at the time. Next is the Intellivision. It was $299 in 1980, or about $1,200 today. The average income in 1980 was $12,513, which means that this was 2.39% of your yearly pay. That's equivalent to spending about $1,386 on the Switch 2, and Intellivision was the first console with voice synthesis. It was literally one of the first consoles to talk to you ever during games. The 3DO launched at $699.99, which would be about $1,530 today. Now, back then, average income was about $23,132, so this took up about 3.03% of your income. The Switch 2 would need to cost around $1,757 to match that, and despite being the first CD-based console, it flopped so hard thanks to its price point and the lack of killer apps. Finally, we have the Neo Geo AES, $649 at launch, or about $1,575 in today's dollars, with income around $21,027 back then. This took up about 3.09% of your household income. The Switch 2 would have to cost $1,792 for it to be equally as painful. This is crazy too. The Neo Geo wasn't just expensive, the games were $200 each. Accounting for inflation again with all those numbers, it's $400 today for one game. All right, so that's the list. We know what it is, but God, it still feels expensive. Like, holy shit. The Switch 2 still hits my wallet like a freaking sucker punch, man. And I figured it out. Here's why. It's because the purchasing power of the dollar has completely shifted. You see, back in 1990, the Neo Geo took up 3% of your paycheck, but your mortgage wasn't too far behind that. Today, that same monthly payment eats up about 40% of what people make every single month. Milk used to be under $3 and was delivered to your front door. Eggs under $1, and houses, you could get one for 40 bucks and a high five in some cases. No, but for real, they were like 80 grand at the time. So it's not just the console price, right? It's everything else that drains you. With the consoles, gaming was niche, production was limited, and technology was new. So it all kind of made more sense that stuff cost more. Now, production is more streamlined than ever. More people are buying, and tech is seemingly cheaper to produce. But our lives, our expenses, they didn't get cheaper, they got worse. That's why that 450 bucks today hurts more than the $700 in 1990, because everything around us is also more expensive now. We're not just buying consoles, we're buying them while also drowning in rent, groceries, and student loan debt. So yeah, there's the most expensive console list, and the Switch 2 is technically cheaper than most consoles ever made. But life in 2025 is way more expensive than it's ever been.